Right, welcome back to another lesson 73 of 84. We're nearly done there, and we are continuing with a brand new, well, a subsection, but still similar to what we have been chatting about over the past couple of weeks. This particularly is going to focus the next six lessons or six, well, yeah, lessons, right? On sales, airtime, commercials, and so on and so forth, right? So, Beyond Powerful Radio is the reference for today's lesson, which is quite long. As you see, I'm going to do it in two parts, 28 slides there. In the middle, I will just stop and say part one and then start with part two. And that's the end of the lessons for this week, right? H Radio 223 part timers, please at any one point, if you do have issues with the summative one, you have to ask, and I'm only literally a text or a message away from a WhatsApp line slash either in the group or privately. It's up to you. I have no problem. Right, chapter 31, sales and commercials, 38, 389, should I say, to 424 is what we're going to cover, right? So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just talk about the introduction of what's just again, I always like to use the word umbrella, the overview of sales within and at the radio station. We're going to be looking at strategies as well. And remember, this is literally where it is the grunt of what you have to do in the summative itself, right? When you are doing that sales pitch, etc., etc. For I think it's question three or four. I'm not saying only pay attention now. Pay close attention, right, to the next couple of lessons, right? Some quotes to begin with. Pat Bryson, Broadcasting International, says, "We are all in sales." So that's everybody and everything in every situation. I say in everything, in every situation. Think about it. It makes complete logical sense. Within your own life, you're selling the best version of yourself at work. You're selling your professional, self. You are, in your family, in your friends, like I say, throughout your lifestyle, you would find that, in general, you're kind of selling your own product, you as a brand, right? And if that's just a little too vague, well, we in radio are all in sales, and that's for a definite, right? Do anything you want on air, but you still have to be able to sell it at the end of the day. And if a sponsor is afraid to be associated with you, well, you lose, right? And that's from the Greaseman, Doug Chart, or Trocht, it doesn't matter. And that's syndicated personality. Syndicated, as you know, it just means that your show is being syndicated across different places in a country or a state or whatever it may be, right? On different stations, right? Okay, so that makes sense, right? I don't think there's a middle ground with sales. You either win or you lose, quote unquote, just to quote the grease man over here. And you either make the sale or you don't. You can't do anything with what happens in between, right? So, okay, or if you land up with a status as quo in between. So, an understanding of the revenue side of the industry, one, is very important for you as a broadcaster. I know that we focus very primarily in second year on programming, but moving through your career and what you are studying here at Boston Media House is, within radio, we don't just teach you to be on air, right? As you know, it's holistic, and the thing is that you need to become a radio practitioner at the end of the day, which just means that you know a little bit more about just being on air and programming, right? And so definitely an understanding once again of the revenue side of what actually makes the station big or makes it valuable or even keeps it on, on air, the lights on, just so to speak, is definitely of your concern. Right. Okay. So within in economy, that has ups and downs, most definitely here in South Africa. More on-air personalities and programmers have found a knowledge of sales to be important. Yes, sometimes, so within commercial, we have a very, very large department and a large workforce, right, that is dedicated to sales and PR and marketing, whatever it may be, right? It doesn't exclude the presenters themselves from being brand ambassadors, as spoke about or mentioned before, right? And definitely also kind of drawing in their own clients or whatever it may be to the station because of their I would say again their personality association, right? Their own brand again association with X client or X product or X service. And that normally comes again, just to kind of recap on what that personality reflects to the audience. So you might come off as someone that is an animal lover, as I said, or a fitness freak, or like a mom, or whatever it is, like an athlete, it doesn't matter. So, sorry, yeah. So that would obviously tie in with the correct sponsor for your brand. And once again, we get the term influencer, but for us, we call it brand ambassador, right? So, okay. Anyway, so more on-air personalities, once again, and programmers have found a knowledge of sales to be very important to them. And within community, well, it isn't, I had a conversation with one of not I wouldn't call him a mentor. I wish he was my mentor, right? But there are like the 4 or 5 people in this industry that I know much more than I do. And I know there's many more, but I also have a good relationship and I do look up to I really do look up to their entire career. And Neil Johnson is one of them. And I was having a conversation with him and I was saying to him, he was asking me how's kind of the structure and the hierarchy or whatever it is currently with the station that I work with, or work at. And part of that is that the personalities have to bring in, ideally, have to bring in their own revenue, So you got to get clients, whatever it is. Yes, you get obviously money out of that, and so and so. But there's reality, and then there is like real reality. For example, like Neil's immediate commentary to that was, it's actually a load of bull because a presenter isn't expected to be able to know nearly as much as what a sales or a PR, well, sales in particular here, executive would know and would probably do quite a poor job at drawing in the correct clients. And for example, tying that in and all the stuff, the bells and the whistles and the professional in betweens, right? Of how to do that properly, guaranteed. I'm telling you now, there isn't a presenter on air that knows all of that and a bag of chips, right? So it takes both sides of the whole to run a successful radio station, sales and programming. When these two departments work together, as I said before in previous lectures, long time ago actually, that kind of cohesiveness is the only way that it works, right, between two departments. And yeah, sure, obviously each department has its mandates and its priorities and the way that it's run, but the one can't live without the other, right? So if you turn it up, sales people turn the radio volume up when there is a commercial break, and that's their work. It's important to them. That's how they make money. Creative, effective, and powerful commercials are really important. The salespeople, I've said this to you before, at a commercial state level, they earn the most money out of everyone that works there, everyone beyond even the managers, whatever it may be, because the contracts that they sign are so incredibly large. So we're talking in the millions, some definitely in the hundreds of thousands. And they get obviously their what is it? What do you call their come on, man. Uh now I've completely forgot that word. And my dad in sales. Uh anyway, they get their portion of that. I'm gonna find the word now, but anyway, it's gonna come to me, right? It's with the C. Damn it. Anyway, okay, Chris, you'll deal with it now, right? Okay, so anyway, you understand. They bring that much money in. Can you imagine? Let's say they have an agreement for 10 or 15, 20% of whatever they bring in. And you bring in 100,000. That's a lot of money, 20,000 bucks from one client or whatever it is to add to your, you know, to your end of month quote unquote salary, because you start at a basic, right? Every single salesperson everywhere in the around the world starts with the basic, right? And you got to earn the rest of it, right? So, sales people are a different breed from programming, definitely, because again, we said this already, just in terms of the structure and the way we think, and the way we do things, and also at the very, again, at the surface level. Hello, like we do different jobs, right? And so our professions definitely are like a yin and a yang, right? So for an on a personality, the need to earn a living is there, but most chose their careers because the need for creative expression, like a love for performing, again, being an entertainer, and making sure that you can entertain other people. That is what drives a personality, a broadcaster, right? So it's essential to the happiness of an online presenter to have an audience, but motivation for a salesperson is financial reward, compensation, right? Compensation, right? So a good salesperson, no matter what it is that they are selling, cares about the quality of the product and wants it to succeed. So you can see definitely both have one thing in common, like a good product at the end of the day. And also, both their jobs depend heavily on the fact that this product, this station, right, and all its components has to be has to work, right? It's got to succeed. Okay, so I'm just going to break just here, just for a second, for a very short video. Um, I'm just quickly share it here. I've got the sound shared on, and it is this one here, Sunning Radio. Yeah. No, that's not right. Not this one. No, not yet. That's for the end. Sorry. I want to do this systematically. I know I could play the one or the other. But this is the one that I want to do first. Why is it sitting there? Weird. Yeah. Here we go. Just let it load. Give me a second. I'm going to pause the recording. Just a second. I think we're nearly ready. Let's give it a second. Once again, here we go.
Okay, brothers. It's our holiday plumbing radio ad. We gotta listen to this. I'm sorry to hear that. What's going on?
Well, my cousin Carl's coming over again for the holidays, and he's a real party pooper, if you know what I mean. I need somebody on standby.
Absolutely. We've seen it all over the last 67 years and can solve any plumbing problem. We promise to be prompt, professional, and pleasant.
Wow, I'm so glad I called.
Yeah, call us anytime. Kobe Brothers at 916-975-9898. That's 916-975-9898. Hearing your own ad on the radio is freaking awesome. Radio advertising works. That's why we've done it, and that's why we'll continue to do it. All right, so by the end of this video, I want you to understand the pros and the cons of using radio advertising to grow your business, whether it's a graphic design business, web design business, motion design business. So let's head to the office, and I'll tell you more about it. All right. Radio advertising. I've got a lot of experience in radio advertising. I've had multiple ads, hundreds of probably ads in total now, run on the radio, and it's something that I'm super passionate about, something I'm really excited to share with you. Before I get into the good stuff, I want to talk a little bit about the bad stuff, because there are some cons to radio. The industry's changing. The industry's been really shrinking for a long time, and it's really important that you understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of radio. So let's go ahead and jump into the cons. The first con of radio is that it can be pretty expensive. Now, the range varies just depending on the type of station that you're listening to and the reach of that station, but the cons is it can be really, really expensive. Depending on if you're running nationally or if you're running locally, that cost can vary significantly. It's also a lot less targeted than online marketing. You can target so many different details about a person. They call those data points with online marketing, which is why it's exploded in growth the way it has and why Facebook's had to take away a lot of the targeting options, because it really got into people's personal lives and privacy. And so now you have something like radio, which is less targeted. You can target by the type of station. So some stations cater to more conservative people versus more liberal people, like NPR versus Fox, right? So there's really a big difference. Business stations versus Christian stations. There's some targeting that's available, women versus men, but the detailed targeting of how many kids they have in the household, things like that, is a lot more limited. So those are some of the cons. One of the other cons is if you're really on a low budget, then you're only going to be able to advertise locally. And some of those smaller local stations don't even get ratings, so you don't really get stats of how many people are hearing your ads, and some of the information is just kind of a guess. So not having that local targeting, not knowing how big your audience is, and not having some of these stations be rated, the Nielsen rating as it's called, can really impact and affect your business. So I'm just curious, have you ever been on a radio show? Have you ever had a radio ad? Or have you ever had your own radio show? I'd love to hear about it. If you have experience with radio, definitely drop a comment down below. And if you'd like to be on a radio show, also drop a comment and say, I would love to be on radio. Drop that comment down below, because I always have opportunities coming up for you to get spots if you're interested in talking about your business or what it is you're doing, and if you want to be on my show. So drop a comment down below and let me know. All right, so now to the important stuff, the meat and the potatoes of what you came here for, is understanding the 3 different types of airtime that you can buy on the radio. The first type of airtime that you can buy are commercials. Most commercials do not go more than 60 seconds, but sometimes radio stations will do promos and they'll sell 15-second and 30-second spots. The 15-second spots we're going to talk about in a minute, but I want to stick to the 30-second and 60-second spots for now. These are the go-to lengths for radio ads. I've done both. I've done more of the 60-second than the 30-second, but you really get a lot of bang for your buck when you do the 60 seconds, because you can fit a lot of content into 1 minute. And if you tell a story and you actually have the right marketing strategy behind these tactics, which these are, you will have a lot of success on the radio. Now, the second type of airtime that you can buy are sponsor spots. So you may hear them doing the weather or the traffic. And when they do those, they say, this segment is brought to you by AIS Insurance, right? So these certain segments and these sponsor spots can be done for certain sections like traffic, weather, news, radio, whatever the different spots of these radio campaigns that they're doing throughout the day and sections of the radio station, they actually have radio sponsor spots. So this is a really good deal. It's usually cheaper, and during the holidays and in major pushes, if you listen, you can actually get a really good deal on these sponsor spots, and you can tag in some actual radio spots with it. And this is a really good type of airtime as well. Gives you a lot of branding, a lot of credibility. The third one, and this is where I have the most amount of experience because I did it the longest, is actually creating shows or like news shows. And this is what they call block programming. This is where you buy a block of time on the radio station. Usually it's in their lower non-peak times of the station, where you buy this block programming time of an hour. It technically breaks down to about 50 minutes, and they'll quote you anywhere between $1,000 to sometimes $5,000 a month, depending on the size of the station, to have that hour block. And during that time, it's not like you can put anything you want, but you can basically create a show or some sort of content around whatever topic you want to talk about, and you buy that time. You can bring on guests and do interviews. You can do just talk. You can do sermons. You can do all kinds of different things with shows. You can talk about news and current events and make that block programming whatever you want. You can talk about technology. I just happened to take mine because I was on a Christian business station, as I did a Christian mentorship show where I talked about sales, marketing, leadership, and technology. Those are some big areas that I have a passion for. So I broke my show into 4 segments, and I talked about each of those during my show. I did some awesome interviews. I met some great people, and I actually built myself as an authority versus pitching somebody to be on my podcast. I said, hey, you want to come on my radio show? It was an FM radio show, and that positioned me a little bit differently than everybody else. So that's the last one, and that's a big one. If you've never done that before, I'd highly look at it and highly consider it, because it's a really good authority building tool for you. So if you found this content helpful so far, please do me a huge favor. Hit the like button right down below. Introduce yourself. I want to know who you are, what you do, what brought you to the channel, why you got here. And let's go ahead and roll into the next section, which is important because I want to validate everything I just said with some industry data. Industry data is really helpful. It brings some facts to the table. I'm not just sharing fluff and my own experiences, but I'm sharing data that has been collected over the last decade. So as far as industry data goes, I want to read this to you guys. All right, so data evaluating the radio market in the United States shows that in 2020, radio advertising spend in the country, and this is in USA, amounted to 10.1 billion US dollars. Yes, that's 10 billion with a B. It is forecasted that spending on radio ads is going to grow to 11.7 billion by the end of 2024. We're almost there. $11.7 billion. It's a ridiculous amount of money. The second stat that I found that I wanted to share with you guys is the weekly time spent with online radio and online and offline, like actual FM and AM stations and audio sources in the United States increased. So it's actually increasing to 974 minutes in 2021, with the amount of time being spent per week amounting to 16 hours and 14 minutes per week. This increase might be caused by the rise of time spent at home due to the pandemic. So a lot of people have access to streaming radio stations now, like iHeartRadio. The last stat that I wanted to give you here that's really important is in March of 2021, so this year, so this is a pretty new stat. The leading online radio company in the United States, based on the average number of active sessions, was iHeartRadio, with around 308,000 average active sessions that month. So in March alone, there was 308,000 sessions that happened on iHeartRadio alone. That's a large audience. iHeartRadio is a great platform. I've been on it myself. I have my podcast on that platform. I can speak very highly of it. iHeart has done a really great job, and it's a great platform. So the next piece, and something that I really needed to share with you, and I talked a little bit about this before, but I want to circle back to it, is your target audiences. It's important that you target an audience with the station you're going on. If you're going after more liberal people who are Prius-driving, eco-friendly Democrats, then you're probably going to want to go towards more of an NPR, more of a liberal station. If you're trying to go for more of a conservative audience, the Larry Elder, who's a nationally syndicated radio host and also just tried to run for the recall election here in California against Governor Gavin Newsom, he is on the more conservative side, has a conservative radio show. If you're targeting moms, you probably want to go after radio stations like The Fish. If you're targeting dads, you're going to want to have to go after ESPN radio. There's lots of different targeting based on the different types of stations that you pick. So you want to go after the right audience and have the right message to the right people, and also the right time, because the time of day that you play your radio ads is also very important. The evening drive, the morning radio, those are important things to consider as well when you're targeting your audiences. All right, what time of day am I going to be featured on? So I want to circle back lastly to the cost. I did touch on it just a little bit, but I want to make sure that you guys are super crystal clear about what radio costs. So between the commercials, 30 and 60-second spots, you could be looking at the low side. I mean, the absolute lowest I've ever seen on like a holiday giveaway was about $25 a spot. Like I said, you're going to need to buy at least 50, 60 spots. And can go as high as like $60, $75. I've even seen like $90 spots for prime time airtime. So you got to take that into consideration. It can get pretty expensive if you're nationally being played. That's going to be really, really expensive per spot. So something to take into consideration. A lot of the big boys have a hold on the marketplace, and it's really hard to break in. So starting locally on a small station and building some momentum is a really good way to start. Now, in terms of sponsor spots, I talked about this. You're going to be looking at a cost of about $1,000 to $5,000 a month. That's a monthly fee to have your own radio station and radio show on a radio station. Sponsor spots, these are usually more done in endorsements. These endorsements can cost you anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000 because they typically have some sort of MC or jock that's behind your name. So like my friend Big Al did a lot of AIS commercials back in the day, a lot of Geico commercials. Like these jocks will rep your brand for you and say, hey, I just had my solar installed by this company, or I'm producing this segment, in part by Wells Fargo or Safe Credit Union, right? So these sponsor spots will help you promote your brand without having to have a big radio ad campaign. And they'll still cost you money, but you can pair these together with some other radio campaigns and actually save some money by doing kind of a combo package deal. So this can apply to your business in a really profound way. Not a lot of your competition is going on to these older, more traditional ways. Radio's been around for forever. I think it was invented in like 1867 or something like that. So it's not new. It's been around a long time. And a lot of people have moved over to digital streaming platforms like podcasting, but there's still a great opportunity on radio for you. And that's why I wanted to share that with you guys today.
Right. Okay. Good introduction. As I said, so not exactly, I'm just going to let this, I can just pause on it. while I talk.
Terra is the IT painkiller. Remote monitoring
Adverts.
and management, remote access, help desk and ticketing, smart automations.
There we go. All right, fair enough. Right. All right. So then we'll look at that now in just a moment. But what I wanted to say was I picked that specific video because I wanted the overview there and also interesting to see it from his perspective as well. So not within the radio station itself, but rather someone that is, I'm not, let me rephrase that, right? So not necessarily from our perspective over here that we're going in from the inside out, right? But again, from one of the obviously he's one of the cogs that make what we're talking about and what we have been talking about, etc., over the past couple of lessons and the ones to come as well. Really nice little time and always good to always add value to your knowledge, right? So, anyway, let's continue. I am going to go to, as I said, about slide 15, and we'll end off with that. It's a local, it's a bit old though, it doesn't matter. Something from a local conference here in South Africa to see what they have got to say. And the speaker is, her name's Yvonne. I'm not sure. When I say about the surname, I can't now remember the surname. But anyway, we'll close off with that. Right, let's continue here. Do we break down the brick wall? Yes, indeed we do. The way sales and programming view one another can affect the success of the station, as we have mentioned before. And a good way to look at maybe respecting, I suppose, anybody and their situation in life is to say, well, what if I was in their shoes? And then all of a sudden, for example, in a professional context, you can start to understand where the other person is coming from, where the department is coming from. And once again, you also become a little bit more integrated within the business process, which is very important for you, no matter what role you play at a station, right? So the live copy advantage, so credibility sells. And what is a live copy? Well, it's basically a live read, right? So some of the most effective spots are the ad-libbed or live copy, right? So we use the presenter to tell a story. And why this is a really valuable, right? Like it's definitely value for your money, right? Way to sell your product is because the listener already has a relationship with that presenter, and so will listen because I have been listening to them in any and every other context at this point. We'll listen to what they have to say. For example, if they do sell your product using storytelling, as we do with everything in radio, right? And personal experience definitely work with credibility, because it's basically the on-air version of word of mouth. Word of mouth, you're going to listen to your sister, your brother, your friend, whatever it is. If they like this product, they use the service. And I was actually talking about this with my cousin. I think it was my cousin, yeah. It's always my cousin. It's my favorite person in the world. Anyway, oh, sorry, mom, dad. Anyway, yeah. But okay, anyway, context. So I was telling her about I was trial and testing AliExpress, right? So you know about AliExpress. It's been around for ages. We're talking about how long it's been around, but only like it's taken me this long, years in the making, to trust because it looks a bit shoddy. I don't know. I don't know. We've had so many online sites and as well as I mean, say so online virtual shopping, right? As you know, that pop up, and there are a dime a dozen, right? And so I was saying to you, you know what? I was super impressed with how quick and how efficient this was. And so now, obviously, all I needed was, oh, wait, here's the word of mouth part. I went online and I posted, I went to Facebook specifically where you can do these types of posts. And I said, has anyone bought from AliExpress? Because there's so much stuff on there that I actually do want, and I want to know specifically because the personal problems that we have here, etc. And it's not etc. It's a big problem because I'm going to pay some money. I'd like I'd like my items to actually make it to South Africa, and because we don't really have post offices before, I was wondering, does it come? Is it in good is it in good shape? That type of stuff. And there were many people that one I've been Facebook friends for quite a while, but then obviously had a testament to the experiences and all were good. I was like, cool, that's worth taking a chance on. Um, Credibility actually sells, right? Another live copy advantage is job security. So the advertiser believes that it is the on-air talent and their personality that is selling the product, as I said there before. Even if numbers are downtrending, if you're bringing in the big bucks for live spots, advertisers will follow, and wherever you go, more so in this age currently that we are, and we've seen influencers, or we've seen I'd say the golden age of influencers is kind of over, not because they're not effective, but because roles have been redefined and labels have been redefined, all that type of stuff. But that whole kind of big umbrella about influencers is over, right? So we do see many people selling a lot of stuff and endorsing a lot of stuff and whatever it is. It's just part and parcel of everyday digital life right now. Again, effective in terms of how effective they are, I'm not sure, right? I don't know enough to say whether or not that is true, because I personally believe I keep saying this to you, like whether you've been in the market, like you've been, in the market for a new pair of gloves or like a beanie or a jacket or, a pair of shoes or a bag or basketball, only then are you going to be convinced by someone that, let's say, you have uh an intangible relationship with, so you can't touch and feel because you don't know this particular person that's famous, that's now most endorsing this product. But you'd be like, yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good option, because here it is right in front of me, and boom, maybe I should give it a try. But you will, if it's summer, not one single influencer slash brand ambassador is going to sell you a fur coat. Finished. No matter how much you like them, right? Right. Anyway, sales principles. Here we go. People don't buy radio advertising; they buy what you'll do for them. So, if they won't give you their time, they won't give you their money. If they won't give you their time, they won't give you their money. People buy emotionally and justified with logic, as I just more said. It's, again, you say there, yeah, look, I mean, let's say, here's the only reason someone would buy a fur coat in the middle of summer. You would say, you know what? It's on special, for example, because who's going to not pay full price for a fur jacket? I'd love that. One of them like, I want to call it a pimp jacket, but you know how it is. It's the pimp fur jacket. I would love one of them, right? I've always wanted one, right? You can see how this emotional manipulation, if I see one that I know I can pull off, and for example, because it's not really a summer winter thing, this is a status thing for me. Like, and I saw it was a good price, it looked good, must look good, obviously, because I'm not going to buy a rubbish one. Emotionally, I'll be like, I've always wanted that. So I think, I've waited long enough, I've worked long enough. Let me make it happen. And also, plus on special, plus also, it looks good on Hugh Jackman. I don't know, whatever it is. Everything looks good on Hugh Jackman, just by the way. So, like, okay, cool, I'm going to buy it. That's the only reason. That's the only reason someone would buy a fur jacket in the middle of summer, for example, right? Even here in South Africa, because we don't really have cold winters where one can maybe showcase a fur jacket. So practically, I'm saying it's impractical. So yeah, okay. And some other people would also say, Look, a fur jacket is I'm saying like one of those long pump jackets, right? Is a bold statement. How many times now can you wear this thing? Before people are saying, "Oh, yeah, you're with your fur jacket or your pump jacket again." Yeah, So a lot of things to consider, and that's why I'm saying to you, like, it genuinely doesn't matter who is telling you buy this, dude. If you don't want it or you don't need it, it's not going to make a difference, right? Okay, so and that brings us so after my rant here. It's not a rant, I'm bringing it back to radio. There's no point in selling something that our target audience doesn't need in their life. Where do we get that? From all our research, our composite breakdown, everything like that. And so here we are, right? We need to access the client's world, understand the client's world, and live in the client's world. And it's not what you say, it's what you ask, right? So, do you feel sick? Like, do you feel the summer or the spring sinus or the hay fever? A lot of people are going to be like, for example, me too. I'll be like, I can't stand it. I'm sneezing 10 times in a row, whatever it is. And so other people will do that too. Be like, well, the brand new, whatever, Allergex, who knows, whatever it is, with us, because that's what I use. The non-stimulant one, the one that doesn't make you feel drowsy or hype or whatever, is now out. And I'll be like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. It's an answer to my problem, a solution to our problem. Mike Siegel recommends going with the account executive to meet sponsors, get to know them personally, right? So make them feel special because they are special because they spend a lot of money, right? So if a spot doesn't work one way, be flexible and be like, take the idea, right? And mold them because you're the creative. No matter what position you are in the station, you're a creative, right? So don't treat commercials like they are separate from the show. Is one approach. The Pareto principle. So become one of the top 20. The principle was named after an Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, right? Whatever, Vilfredo Pareto, right? Who noticed in 1906, more than a century ago, that 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the population. Translated into sales, the Pareto principle states 80% of the business is brought in by 20% of the sales force. Programming directors may recognize the Pareto principle as P1 listeners. Also, 20% of people who buy advertising um, will bring in 80% of the station's business because they're buying a lot. I'm saying they're paying a lot, right? So a small amount of clients, but they got big, they bought they bought a big contract, they are a partner in like I say, an activation, or they sponsored the top 40 or a show or a feature. That's big money, man. And so that kind of makes no, it makes clear, sensible sense, right? So anyway, new prospect sales is a process, and if you're not made for it, as I think I've said before, but I tell everybody and anybody who brings it up with me, I say, I'm not a salesperson. Finished, done. Like I can come with everything before the sales process. So going to go find and make a sale. Like I can do nothing afterwards, right? It's really just not one of my talents, and so I'm not gonna. You got to be honest with yourself. Are you someone that understands the process, but is also a smooth talker, can convince? And I'm not talking about a telesales person, because after the first 4 seconds, we hang up, right? Um, Otherwise, maybe you're feeling good on a certain day, you'd like to be kind to a certain person who's trying to do their job. Let them talk and say later, so I'm not really interested. That's fine. That doesn't mean that they're good at sales, right? Sales, you got to have the patience and tolerance. Cold calling is hard. Cold calling is when you don't know anything from anything, and you're approaching someone from the very beginning, from the very first step. Cold calling, no references, no nothing. contacting strangers, people you do not have a connection with. Scientifically, only 5% will result in sales. There's a lead, you've heard that there's a person that is looking into like obviously advertising in radio, and that's a lead. That's a hot lead, right? So likelihood of closing the deal once you have the lead goes to maybe 15%, right? Because that particular person might not be a good match, or maybe it's too expensive, or out of their budget, etc. So you can understand a referral. So now you have someone that is in a position to refer your station to another person who already trusts them, and the referral will only happen because they have experienced a good service via your obviously station, right? They've experienced great service. That's the only reason they'd refer, right? I'm not gonna do it as a favor. I'll say, no, listen, I've heard a great, like my experience was great, money wise, great, like return on investment, clearly obviously stated for me, but definitely great for my, obviously whatever I was needing at that time, right? So there we go. An introduction. If you can get an introduction, you will close 90 to 95% of the time. And the 20% of salespeople who do write 80% of the business live in the world of referrals and introductions, right? So you push for that. Right. So how it works. Here we go. Three phases. Phase one, the top 20% organize their days so that includes time for talking with new prospects, right? Phase two, then they make discovery calls to gather information from the prospects. And three, they present solutions and ask for money, right? So, presenting solutions on page 397 of, again, Geller's book, Please Be on Powerful Radio. Here's a little bit of a script. Hello, my name is Chris, and I work for KFM, right? I don't know if we have anything to talk about or not, but I do work with business people who are experiencing frustration. So some are feeling the effects of slow economy or having trouble finding and keeping good people. Others have seen some profit margins shrink with the advent of strong competition, right? So, like large discount retailers, Walmart's killing the small business owner. Which of these might be a concern for you? So at least, so at least one of the problems are going to apply to this person, ideally, right? Okay. Would it make a sense for you to invite me over to discuss more about your problem? Because I know I have a solution for you, or a couple of solutions that we can offer you. But how about Thursday or Friday? So you make it. You have to be no, not definitive, not demanding either, but you got to be commanding. You understand? You can't say is it all right? Like, are you interested or not? They're going to be like, no. They will tell you no, right? Okay. But if you're going to cold call someone, you have to say like, when are you available for maybe like a Teams meet or a Google, what is it? A Google chat? I'm not sure. But that type of things. Let's even do a WhatsApp call. Let's do it. So video call easier. So it's easy within the day. You just make it, yeah, more appealing, right? Now you never get a second chance, so you got to make a first. When you make a first impression, right? Dress professionally, smile, shake hands, be charismatic. As I say, like a salesperson is like a snake, like they slither and move and whatever it is, eh? Right, they're going for the kill. Give the person a reason to spend time and money with you. Here's the last slide for part one, right? Understand your client's challenges. The top 20% learn to master the art of moving prospects from level one to level three. So as we said, they're like level one. What is the biggest challenge facing that client's business today? And what effect has this problem had on your business? And well, here we have maybe a solution. What effect has this business problem had on you personally? Then top sellers will then create the solution. It's really important to get feedback of execution from your client, right? So we're going to start here in the next lesson, because in part 2, I want to stop the share and I want to play you this video to close up the lesson. Share sound, give me a second here. I think the audio is good enough. I'm just going to make this a little bigger. Right, let's watch it.
So, to the sellers of radio stations and agencies, if you just sell airtime, you are always going to be reacting to the price issue. Always. I've heard it, the last thing that they said previously was that radio has become expensive. And that's the narrative at the moment. That's what people say about radio. Radio is expensive. It's not. Radio is not expensive if it delivers value. It's only expensive if it doesn't sell anything. Then it's very expensive. But so is television and so is everything. So everything has a relative value. What I've put up here is the Houghton, which is where I'm living, by the way. Indeed. But I'm putting this up as a case study because this was a campaign that was done purely on radio. They marketed the Houghton on radio. That's where I heard about it. That's what drove me to go and see it. And 20 seconds later, I was signing on that dotted line. It cost me a frickin' fortune, but it's beautiful. But the radio, why I'm using it is because campaigns can be successful just on radio. And that's a really important fact that we have to put into our heads. I think the campaigns that you've heard this morning have really illustrated that. They've touched our hearts, they made us laugh in 30 seconds. I always think that's absolute sheer brilliance, that you can be moved to an emotion within 30 seconds. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But it's about creating the value. So what is value? Value is understanding the client's business, really coming to terms with what the client is wanting to do. It's about recognition. It's about status. It's about information. It's about creating that fabulous sense of community. It's about the quality of the customer connection. All of these things are added value. So when a client says, where is the value? I'm giving you the language that you can pass on to them. It's about relevance and finding those consumer insights. It's also about the breadth of the offering. We've talked a lot about digital, but it's about social, it's about experiential extensions. And the stations that are creating experiential extensions to the campaigns are the ones that are going to take the money in the end. They're the ones that are going to go out on a limb, do something different. People want to be unique. It's this whole thing about customer choice. They want talkability. Radio is the best medium to create talkability, to create a sense of what's happening in the world. That's where it happens. They want innovation. They want desk research, and they want qualitative research. They want a sense that you care. You know, there's that old famous David Ogilvy saying, which says, clients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Really important that you demonstrate that you care about the clients and understand their business. They want co-collaboration where they can put their heads together. You know, clients sometimes just want to have some exciting energy in the room, and nothing is exciting like media, where you can sit and come up with a whole range of ideas and try this and try that. That's what gets the client involved, and that's what will make, from a radio station's perspective, the job more worthwhile. They also want editorial support. So this business of radio stations saying, oh, no, we don't do that. Well, you better start doing that, doll, because that's what clients want. And in the end, whether we like it or not, the clients give us the revenue. The clients pay the salaries. The clients are the ones whose heads we have to get inside. And I think far too often we sit from one perspective and we don't think about what's happening out there in the marketplace. And they often want tactical response. So all of those things are added value. So to sum up, what I want to do here today is to change the narrative. A medium is only expensive if it doesn't deliver. Agree? In a digital world, radio is quite capable of being the lead medium. Really important point. Radio has the energy and a vibrance that is unmatchable by other radio types. Brands absolutely can, and we've seen many examples, they absolutely can be built just on radio. Radio can be very reactive to clients' needs, and what people are really looking for is customer-centric offerings. So let's talk about what we want to change and some of the things that we can start to sell. It's easy to integrate with digital, social media, and out of home. There's brilliant synergy with mobile. I'm not saying that radio doesn't support television here, but what I'm saying is this is not the primary reason for using radio anymore. Of course it can support television, but it's how you use it. And again, I reiterate what Ralph said. I think it needs to be different creative. It absolutely inspires creativity. It absolutely gives word-of-mouth endorsement. We've talked a lot about that love, that connection we sense with the person who's talking to us on the radio, that relationship that we have with people on the radio. Build frequency with radio, that's very old school. Yes, you can, but I want that to be taken out of the principal narrative. For me, it's almost become a throwaway line. It's about edutainment. It can be the primary medium. It's not just about brand recall anymore, where they took the television soundtrack and dumped it onto radio stations. It allows for real dialogue, as we've just, well, you haven't seen, you've half seen the YouTube clip, where the client allowed real dialogue with their clients. It allows vibrance and maneuverability. It's accessible everywhere, especially now. In fact, the other day I was at Radio Jacaranda for a promotion, and somebody emailed in who was listening in London. And that's what's happened, is South Africans all around the world are listening to South African radio. They don't have to be here anymore. Tactical and immediate, and really important, you cannot PVR it. So, you know, that poor elephant ad I go through at about plus 64, times 64. So what's the way forward? The way forward is to create partnerships, to be flexible, to actively throw away that rule book and build engaged relationships, to become a source of credible information, to develop solutions to brand problems, to research insights from your audiences. I mean, I think that Future Factor is a really good place to start because it's already giving audience insights to the radio stations. But I think that it's incumbent upon the stations themselves to go and do research and really interrogate what state of mind their audience is in. Get to know the DNA of your stations. And lastly, train your salespeople to be marketers. They're not just salespeople. They need to understand the marketing process and they need to understand the client's issues so that they can offer solutions.
Good stuff. Great video. Love it. Okay, let's stop. Let's go there. Stop part 1 here. See you part 2.